all you free, wondrous souls out there. My name's Jeff Einstein, coming to you directly from sunny Delray Beach, Florida. And yes, I'm more than easily amused. Stop me if you've heard this one. General George Custer, standing high atop a hill looking down and out across the future battle site of Little Bighorn, when suddenly he hears the ominous drone of Sioux Nation war drums wafting in the distance. Turning to his trusty Indian scout, he says, "I don't like the sound of those drums." His trusty Indian scout listens for a moment longer, then turns back to General Custer and says, "That's not their regular drummer." Seem to be a whole lot of folks in corporate media banging a whole lot of war drums these days. Unlike the Custer joke, however, these clowns are the regular drummers. Corporate media has never encountered a war it didn't like, because war sells. War and politics and drugs and racial animus and other affronts to our hearts and minds are all big evergreen money makers for corporate media and defense contractors and politicians and race baiters. Just not so good for the rest of us. That's because once war breaks out, the typical ratio of news to propaganda, which is really just a rudimentary and crude form of advertising, shifts. We may not notice the shift right away, probably because there doesn't seem to be much difference in how war and peace are reported in the media these days. What we now call the news begins, even without the benefit of war, at a working ratio of maybe 90% propaganda to 10% actual news. News these days begins at a fever pitch and accelerates to apocalyptic screed in a heartbeat, regardless of the topic, wartime or peacetime. We no longer need war to declare truth as the first casualty in 21st century America. The fog of war is simply a permanent feature of today's crisis-driving corporate media landscape. More to the point of this video, the fog of war isn't even fog anymore. As the great American poet Robert Frost once wrote, "Now I've a cat, but she's nothing like the fog."
Quiet. Quiet. Quit stomping around.
Fog is ethereal, with mystical powers to reshape the world. Fog is a miracle of nature. Under the thinning fog, wrote Raymond Chandler in The Big Sleep. The surf curled and creamed almost without sound, like a thought trying to form itself on the edge of consciousness. No, what we have in the 21st century isn't fog at all. And it certainly ain't no miracle of nature. What we have is the toxic effluence of corporatist propaganda cranked up to 11 at all times.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11. Look, right across the board. 11, 11,
and most of
11,
the
and then
amps go up to 10.
Exactly.
We don't have the fog of war. Fog comes in and then retreats. What we have comes in to stay, and it comes in all the time, 24/7. The corporate media have immersed us in a never-ending brain and soul-numbing tsunami of digital media at Defense Production Act levels for decades. As a society, our investments in corporate media are measured in tens of trillions of dollars over the past few generations. That's right, tens of trillions of dollars. We don't have the fog of war. What we have is industrial strength smog, a permanent inversion layer that hangs over our heads, befouls the air, and obscures everyone's vision all the time. In fact, the institutional raison d'etre for the entire corporate media industry is not to inform or educate, or even to entertain, but to convert us all into dopamine-soaked media addicts. The effect of the addiction-propelled propaganda we see flying all around us with little or no regard whatsoever for truth or integrity is not to make people believe that lies are true, but to get people to believe that there is no truth, that we can no longer hold these or any other truths to be self-evident. 50 years after Hannah Arendt published her seminal work, Eichmann in Jerusalem, A Report on the Banality of Evil, we find the banality of evil invoked once again in deliberate obliteration of critical thought on a massive institutional level. It hovers over us in the brave new digital world like a dark cloud of drones, and it tells us over and over ad nauseum to
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
That's it for me, folks. Be sure to hit that blue subscribe button on my Jeff Einstein 2.0 Substack blog, and don't forget to share this video with at least 200 of your closest friends and family. Remember, skepticism is our first civil obligation in a free society. Thanks for tuning in, and God's love to you.